The bride threw a fit and ended up looking like she borrowed her dress from a church lost and found at her own lavish wedding. Let me tell you how that happened. I'm 48. Patricia is also 48, though she's been claiming to be somewhere in her 40s for longer than biology would allow. We went to college together, and back then I slowly figured out who she really was. Not through one dramatic moment. Just through watching her over time, the way you watch clouds build before a storm. Little by little I realized she was someone without a moral floor. Someone who would say or do whatever it took to get what she wanted and feel absolutely nothing about it afterward. She's manipulative. Relentlessly pushy. And she has this walk she brings out when she wants sympathy, this exaggerated heavy-footed waddle like every single step is a heroic act of suffering. I've never seen anyone be so simultaneously exhausting and absurd. I stopped spending time with her before we even graduated. For years I was happy. Life moved on. I forgot she existed. Then she found me on Facebook. I accepted her friend request out of politeness. That was my first mistake, and some part of me knew at the moment I clicked confirm. Within weeks she had embedded herself back into my life like a splinter you can't quite reach. Her 5 kids started calling me Aunt Patricia, had apparently told them to because that's just what she did, decided things on behalf of other people without asking. I had never agreed to it, never encouraged it, and honestly found it unsettling every single time. She tried dropping them at my house unannounced on weekday afternoons. She showed up at my workplace twice. She called constantly. Texted. Called again if I didn't respond fast enough. When I set boundaries, she didn't respect them. She looked for loopholes. Every single time. My husband and I run a small community initiative in our area. Nothing fancy, we help neighbors organize informal gatherings, connect people who need support with people who can give it. We do a lot of work with people experiencing homelessness. We host most of our events at a farm owned by an older couple about an hour outside of town. Beautiful property, a barn, open green fields, a little pond, geese wandering around like they own the place. For community events, the owners let us use it free of charge. For private events like weddings, they charge a reasonable fee. One of the women in our group, Lena, runs a separate initiative, a wedding and prom dress program. Women donate dresses, Lena collects them, and she redistributes them to women who can't afford formal wear. Some pay $50. Most receive them completely free. It's a quiet, meaningful program. The kind of thing that actually changes someone's day in a way they remember forever. Patricia joined our community group immediately. She never missed a single event. She positioned herself as a key organizer, always busy, always present, always the first to volunteer. Which sounds positive until you understand that for her, visibility was the entire point. She wasn't there to help. She was there to be seen helping. The first real warning sign in my own house came at a gathering we hosted. We have a designated area for parties, clear, obvious, not confusing. Her kids somehow ended up in our bedroom. Not wandering the hallway. In our bedroom going through things. My husband and I spent the entire evening following them around instead of being present with our actual guests. A few days later, I called her to address it. She interrupted me within 30 seconds, pivoted to talking about herself, and then cheerfully informed me that her kids had loved our house and really wanted to come back to use our pool this summer. I didn't respond. I genuinely did not trust what would come out of my mouth. She called again a few weeks later, closer to summer, to let me know her middle daughter was feeling lonely and wanted to spend a whole week at our house. I declined politely, explaining that my husband and I both work full-time and can't host. She didn't stop. Her daughter called me on a Saturday, called me personally, called me aunt, and said that her mom had told her I'd already agreed to the visit. I clarified the situation as carefully as I could, trying not to make the child feel bad. The girl went quiet for a moment. Then she hung up on me. Meanwhile, on Facebook the cracks were starting to show. Cryptic posts would appear, vague complaints, loaded hints, and under them comments from friends who were clearly at their limit. One called her out publicly for leaving her kids with a babysitter for just a couple hours that somehow turned into an entire day. Another was furious because she owed her money, kept claiming she was broke but still found money every single Friday night to go out. These weren't private messages. These were public posts. The kind you only write when you've completely run out of other options. And the stories kept coming. At Christmas, our group collected toys for low-income kids, wrap-tagged, ready to go. Several of the nicer toys disappeared. They turned up under her Christmas tree. Her mother-in-law posted photos on Facebook without realizing what she was showing. Nobody could prove anything officially. But everyone knew. My daughter came home from Patricia's oldest daughter's birthday party in tears. Casey, that's the daughter, had basically demanded a specific $80 gaming item as a gift. I told my daughter no, that we'd find something thoughtful and well-chosen instead. Because of that, Casey and her friends ignored my daughter the entire evening. She sat alone in the living room for hours while the other girls were outside. When I arrived to pick her up, she was by herself pretending she was fine. She was not fine. The farm owners started locking the front gate between events because Patricia had developed a habit of just driving in whenever she felt like it. Her kids threw rocks into the pond. They chased the geese. They walked through the middle of an actual wedding in progress once, just wandered straight through it because nobody had stopped them at the entrance. There was a soccer team incident. There were other parents who quietly stopped including her in anything because she would manufacture conflict between kids for reasons nobody could fully explain. And there was Hank. Hank was her husband. He worked 3 jobs. 3. He came home and cleaned the house because she said she didn't have the energy. He helped the kids with homework because she said she didn't have the patience. He tried to hold the family together through sheer grinding willpower while she spent his money, refused to go back to work, and systematically made his life smaller and smaller. She wanted 5 children. He'd asked her to stop after their third. He was nearly 45, exhausted, and couldn't see a path to retirement if they kept going. She left him for 2 months. Took the kids. Came back when he agreed to try again. That's how children 4 and 5 arrived. Her pregnancies were events. Not medical experiences, events. She expected the kind of attention reserved for visiting royalty. She took to her bed almost immediately after each positive test. Every weekend she was too ill to function. The kids got shuffled off to friends and relatives so she could rest while Hank covered everything else. During the week somehow she was perfectly fine. When she left with the kids to pressure him into compliance, Hank would be on the porch alone in the evenings. My husband noticed at first that particular stillness a person has when they're not sure they're going to be okay. Over time, my husband said quietly that Hank was showing signs of real depression. Not sadness. The kind that settles in like weather and doesn't lift on its own. Everyone in the community loved Hank. Everyone had very complicated feelings about his wife. Now I need to tell you about my daughter's ring. When she turned 13, I gave her my grandmother's ring to wear for her birthday week. It's not valuable in any monetary sense, small, vintage, delicate. The kind of piece that's fashionable again right now with younger girls. My grandmother gave it to me when I became a teenager. I gave it to my daughter for the same reason. It meant something real. It was irreplaceable in the way that only personal history makes something irreplaceable. After her birthday week, my daughter changed. She went quiet. Withdrew. Started making excuses not to go to school. My husband and I were concerned enough to go in and speak with her teachers, who said they hadn't noticed anything different in her social circle. We suspected bullying but couldn't find the entry point. She wouldn't give us anything to work with. She's deeply kind and deeply private, and she was protecting someone even while she was hurting. I called her best friend Natalie. Natalie told me what had happened. Casey, Patricia's oldest, 17 years old, had asked to try on the ring. My daughter let her. Casey refused to give it back. Said she'd misplaced it, she'd look for it, don't worry. Meanwhile, she wore it to school on her index finger every single day. When my daughter kept asking for it, Casey started a rumor that my daughter had tried to steal Casey's ring. Some kids believed her. My daughter sat through it. Said nothing to me. Kept going to school every day, watching someone wear her grandmother's ring and tell everyone it belonged to them. I still feel the specific guilt of knowing my child didn't feel safe enough to come to me. The ring was replaceable. That feeling is not. When she finally told me, I drove to school pickup that same afternoon. I walked straight to Patricia's car. Casey was standing outside it. I took her hand and asked her to show me her jewelry. She froze. Made a fist. I didn't ask again. I slid the ring off her finger. She has small hands. She'd been wearing it on her index finger because it didn't fit anywhere else, and held it up so her mother, who had just climbed out of the car, could see the engraving on the inside of the band. My grandmother's maiden name. Patricia told me my daughter had given it to Casey willingly. Then she said she had purchased it herself. Neither story survived contact with reality for more than 30 seconds. I told both of them clearly and without raising my voice that Casey had been a cruel and toxic presence in my daughter's life and that we were done. She called me that evening to explain that I had damaged Casey's confidence by taking the ring without her permission. She never apologized. Not once. Not for the ring. Not for the rumor. Not for any of it. A few weeks later, Patricia announced she was renewing her vows with Hank. At the farm. On the exact anniversary date of their original wedding. There was already another couple booked for that date. She contacted them repeatedly. I don't know exactly what she said, but the word harassment is not too strong until they gave up their reservation and booked somewhere else. They were not happy about it. She got her date. Then she negotiated a significant discount from the farm owners, promising to do maintenance work in exchange. She did none of it. The owners were quietly furious but had already committed. Then she found the dress. Lena's collection included a vintage gown that I had personally found at a garage sale for $40. Lena's $40, not mine. It was extraordinary. White full-lace heavy skirt, the kind of dress that photographs like a dream and only turns up once. It was already promised to another woman in the program. I'll call her Diane. Diane had worked her way off public assistance. She'd earned her GED. She was finishing a nail technician certification and building her life into something that finally felt stable. This dress was going to be part of her wedding. It had been matched to her. It was hers. Lena told Patricia clearly, this dress is spoken for. You'll need to pay for your own. She said she understood. Then she volunteered to ship Diane's dress to her and sent the wrong one. When confronted, she insisted it was correct, despite Lena's documentation, her own planning notes, and the inventory tag numbers sewn into every garment. She simply repeated, "That's the right dress," and stopped responding. Lena banned her from the storage facility entirely. Their last phone call ended with Patricia saying, "This conversation is over. That's my dress. You're wrong." Then she hung up. I think about Diane a lot. She'd fought hard just to get to a starting line that most people never have to think about. And someone who had far more than enough just reached over and took from her because she thought she could and because she assumed Diane couldn't do anything about it. That assumption was about to become a very expensive mistake. The night before the vow renewal, Lena was at the farm closing down a Saturday fundraiser dinner. Patricia was there setting up decorations, cheerful, pleasant, the way she always was when everything was going according to her plan. Lena checked the garment bag while she was distracted. Same dress. Same tags. Same handwritten inventory numbers on the inner hem. Patricia had added beading and dyed it ivory, but it was the same gown. Unmistakably, undeniably the same gown. Lena called me. She said she didn't want to just ruin it. She wanted Patricia to be completely certain that everything was fine right until the moment it wasn't. We let ourselves in before the venue locked for the night. The bridal suite was genuinely beautiful, flowers everywhere, rich decorations, more thought put into it than I expected. I'd brought ink thinking we'd stain the dress. Lena said no. Too visible. If she spotted it early, she might scramble and find something else. No. The dress needed to look perfect. Right up until she put it on. Lena locked herself in the bathroom with the dress and a pair of scissors. She cut out the entire back panel. Cleanly. Deliberately. Rehung the dress. Zipped the garment bag closed. We left through the emergency exit. The back panel of the dress was in Lena's purse. Patricia called me at 7 the next morning. I let it ring. At 8 I picked up. Mostly out of curiosity and because I wanted to know if she'd figured anything out. She hadn't. She was barely coherent. Crying, hyperventilating, trying to explain that her dress was gone. Half of it was just gone. Missing. Destroyed somehow, she didn't know how. I played completely dumb. Asked her to explain again. Interrupted her the way she always interrupted me. Apologized for not understanding. Asked clarifying questions. Bought every minute I could. She asked if she could borrow my wedding dress. No. I was so sorry. She asked if I could drive around town and find her something. I reminded her gently that bridal shops in our area are closed on Sundays. The nearest one that might possibly be open was nearly an hour away, and the farm itself was already an hour outside of town. Round trip minimum 2 hours, assuming they had something in her size, assuming they'd do a same-day situation, assuming they even opened before 10. She'd only booked the morning slot to save money, which meant the venue had to be cleared by noon for the next event. I watched the math close in on her through the phone. The silence between her sentences got heavier and heavier. She cried harder, said something I couldn't make out. Hung up, called Lena. Lena and I arrived at the farm with the oldest, mustiest, most enormous donated dress we had in storage. What followed was something I could not have scripted. She tried to wear her silk slip as a wedding gown. It was beautiful fabric. It was also obviously underwear, and every single person in the room knew it immediately. She tried to take Casey's dress off her body, literally tried to get her own daughter to hand over what she was wearing so she could put it on herself. Casey looked at her and said, "So I just show up to your wedding naked?" and refused. The backup dress Lena brought was enormous. It pooled on the floor by 6 inches. It bunched at the shoulders. The safety pins holding the sleeves and neckline into something resembling a shape were visible from across the room. She walked to the altar with a bouquet in one hand and the front of the skirt gripped in the other, trying to keep the hem off the ground with every single step. She needed a petticoat to make the skirt sit properly. There wasn't one. She looked like she was fighting the dress the entire ceremony. Rigid. Distracted. Not present. She had planned this moment for months, the exact date, the beautiful farm, the decorations, the catering, and she spent every minute of it visibly painfully somewhere else. Hardly anyone came. That wasn't our doing. That was years of behavior finally adding up all at once. The decorations were stunning. The cake was beautiful. The bride wore safety pins and flip-flops and looked like she wanted to dissolve into the floor. I didn't stay for the reception, but I heard that she sulked through the entire thing. No real toasts. No speeches worth remembering. She changed into a t-shirt and leggings within the first hour, put on her flip-flops, and started telling the staff to fold up the chairs barely 60 minutes after the reception began. She dismissed her own wedding guests. The cake was never cut. After that, something shifted. She got quieter. Stopped showing up everywhere. Started avoiding the community events she'd once dominated. She deleted most of us from Facebook, me, her old college friends, half the group, and gradually faded from the social spaces she'd occupied so loudly for so long. I don't know if she ever figured out what really happened to the dress. Hank started therapy. The last time she took the kids and left to pressure him, something was different when she came back. He wasn't destroyed. He was mowing the lawn. He was riding his bike in the evenings. He was moving like a man who had remembered that he was allowed to exist for himself. When she returned, he kept his own schedule. Started going places alone. Started doing things that had nothing to do with her. We saw them together less and less. Then not at all. He moved out. He filed for divorce on grounds of emotional abuse. I don't know every detail of the settlement, just that there was some kind of agreement about limiting contact to matters involving the children directly. I hope he's okay. He deserved better from the very beginning. I think about Diane sometimes. About her dress and what it meant to her and what it cost Patricia absolutely nothing to take. I think about my daughter sitting alone in that living room wearing a brave face she should never have had to wear. I think about Hank on that porch alone, looking like a man who had forgotten what quiet felt like. She spent years taking things from people she thought were weaker than her. Small things, big things, it didn't matter. She just took. And she never once looked like she felt anything about it. I don't feel guilty about the dress. Not even a little. But I do wonder, if we'd done nothing, if everyone had just kept absorbing it quietly, how much further would she have gone? So here's what I want to know from you. If someone had been quietly taking from the people around you, not dramatically, not all at once, but piece by piece over years, and every single time they were caught, they just smiled and said, "That's mine," where would you have finally drawn the line? Tell me in the comments. And if this story hit different for you, you know what to do.